Okay, wow. The hockey world has just exploded today. On Father's Day too, of all days to do it. This is a big one. This is a big one. The Florida Panthers acquiring Brady Tkachuk. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Michael. This is why you watch hockey. This is why you follow hockey for big deals like this. This is one of the biggest deals we've seen in a while. Every year there's big deals. Rantanen last year. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk to Florida 3 years ago. 4 years, is it 3 or 4 years ago now? I can't remember how long it was. Well, it's been 4 years, yeah, because they made it to Stanley Cup 3 years in a row, and this year they missed it. So it's been 4 years that Florida's had Matthew Tkachuk. But Brady will be joining his brother in Florida. And Florida is gearing up to try to win another Stanley Cup final. But to talk about this deal, you have to go back to a deal that was made earlier. I don't know if it was made yesterday or if it was made today, but the deal that was made before the Brady Tkachuk deal. The Seattle Kraken acquire forward Mackie Samoskevich from Florida for a first round pick in 2026. This upcoming draft, which is the 26th overall pick, and a 2027 second round pick and then the big one. But first off, we'll talk about that deal. Now, I do have to throw Seattle in there for a second. I don't want to talk too much about it because we all want to get to the Brady Tkachuk situation. But Seattle acquires Mackie Samoskevich. Mackie Samoskevich was a first round pick of Florida back in 2021, 24th overall. He's been pretty decent at every level that he's played at. When he was in college, he was a point per game in his last year in college, which was the 22-23 season with Michigan. Um, he was a pretty good player in the AHL in 23-24, which was his first full season, where he had 54 points in 62 games played. And he just finished his sophomore year in the NHL. He had 31 points last year in 72 games played. This year, 32 points in 77 games played. So not too much growth from him. Actually, technically, in terms of point per game, he's slightly regressed because he's played more games and only had one more point. Um, in terms of what Seattle is getting in a player, we don't really know yet because he is only 23 years old. Um, he could grow into a top six guy. He could just stay a middle six guy. But I think what they are getting is a legitimate everyday NHL player. Um, in terms of the value that they gave up for that player, to give up the 26 overall pick for a 30-point guy, no matter if they're 23 or whether they're 30, is a little difficult, a little tough. I would think that a guy like Mackie Samoskevich, who is 23, 23 is young, but it's not incredibly young. This is not a 20, 21-year-old prospect. This is, you know, this guy's been in the league for 2 years. There's still growth to be had. How much growth is that? We're not really sure as of right now. Um, for a player like this, I feel like 26 overall is just a little too rich for my liking from Seattle. Now this pick isn't Seattle's pick. This is Tampa Bay's pick. And you're probably thinking, Tampa Bay, when did Seattle get Tampa Bay's pick? This is the first round pick that Seattle got from Tampa Bay in the Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde trade that happened last year. So, because there was two first round picks that got sent to Seattle in that deal. So that's that pick. Um, and Florida picks up another first, late first, and Seattle gets a player that they think that they can probably develop and be a part of their long-term future. Who knows? Maybe Seattle is seeing something that we don't see with this kid and is like, okay, this kid isn't just a normal third liner. This kid can develop into a top six guy. And if we're trading the 26 overall pick to get a top six player, we can we can deal with that. Um, I think it's a little too rich for my liking. I definitely do think when it comes to trading away picks within um the year of the draft after the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, when you know where those picks are, it's a little bit more easier to determine what value is worth what. I think if you ask me what Sam Miskevich would go for, what his value is, I would say a high second, like between 33 and like 40, I would say for Sam Miskevich would be a pretty good trade. I think 26 is a little too rich for Seattle to be giving up that pick. The second round pick as well, to give up a first and a second to get Mackie Samoskevich, for me, is a lot. Um, I think that that's a lot, because if Mackie Samoskevich is just a third liner for them, which he's been with what he's been in Florida, you gave up a lot of value to get a third liner, even though he is a young third liner that could develop into a second liner or maybe even a first liner. We'll see. But I don't like the value that Seattle gave up in this deal. When it comes to Florida, prior to the Kachuk trade, that's great value for Mackie Samus. I keep calling him Sammy, Mackie Samoskevich. Um, that's great value to get a late first round pick in this year's draft and then a second round pick in next year's draft for a 23-year-old that you don't have envisioning as being the future of your roster. That's great value. But Florida said, screw the picks, man. Who cares about getting picks for a young player? Let's flip this. And this is the big trade. The Florida Panthers acquire forward and brother of current teammate Matthew Tkachuk. They acquire Brady Tkachuk from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for a 2026 first round pick, which is the ninth overall pick, which is Florida's pick, another 2026 first round pick, which is the 26th overall pick, which is Tampa Bay's first round pick that they acquired from Seattle in the Samoskevich trade, a first round pick in 2029. That's important. 2029, which is Florida's pick, and a 2027 second round pick. That's not the pick that they got from Seattle. That is the Winnipeg pick that they got from Seattle. It's they're going to be their first round or their second round pick. Sorry. So three firsts and a second. When we look at this trade, we'll start off with the picks. When you hear a player got traded for 30 first round picks, you're probably thinking, whoa, Ranton only went for two firsts. Who is this player? And you could say, is Kachuk as good as Rantanen? Is he better than Rantanen? No, he's not, in my eyes. I think Rantanen's better than Brady Tkachuk. But you can't think of it like that. You can't think of it as the Florida Panthers gave up three first round picks for Brady Tkachuk. You have to think of it of the mindset as two of those picks are coming from this upcoming draft. You know, we don't know where Florida's going to be in 2029. Florida could be good, they could be bad. That's magic beans. Same thing with trading a first round pick in the upcoming draft. You know, who knows? You trade an offseason trade, you trade your future first round pick. Is that pick going to be first? Is that pick going to be last? Who knows? And that kind of magic of it and not knowing this adds value to the pick. But since we know where these picks are, it changes the value. The ninth overall pick is a great pick. So, I mean, Ottawa's getting a fantastic pick, top 10 pick. That's a true player. And we'll get into Ottawa in a second. It's not a super elite player, but you can find like franchise level players at nine. I mean, Seth Jarvis was taken like 12th, 13th to Carolina, and he just won the Stanley Cup, and he's one of their best young players. So the ninth overall pick is a really good pick. The 26th overall pick is not. The 26th overall pick is a pick that is very hit or miss. That is a spot in the draft that a lot of busts, first round draft pick busts come from. It's late firsts, you know? The value of honestly a second round pick in a draft in future drafts is more valuable. Well, it's not, but I take that back. I was gonna say a second round pick is more valuable than a first round pick. It's not, but a second round pick in a future draft and a 26 overall pick have this pretty much the same value or similar value, if that makes sense. Um, it's a late first. You could find someone good, you can find someone bad, you can find someone decent. It's not the same as a ninth overall pick. The value of the 26th overall pick as opposed to the ninth overall pick is significantly lower. Um, I think the real interesting pick in this deal is the 2029 first round pick. That is in that is in 3 years from now. That is not next year. That is not in 2 years. That is in 3 years from now. Where is Florida going to be in 3 years? Now you could say, okay, well, it's Florida Panthers. They just added Brady Tkachuk, and I'm going to go through their forward core in a little bit, but they're stacked. Like they are stacked. So they're going to be good in 2029. But what if they're not? What if in 2029 the Florida Panthers are a bad team and that pick ends up being top five? Now, obviously, would you rather have Brady Tkachuk for the last 2 years of his deal and then potentially re-sign him in 2 years, or the 2029 first round pick that could be anything? Ottawa or Florida's going to argue, yeah, we won't. we want Brady Tkachuk. Also, depending on how well he does with them. Um, so it's not really three firsts. I mean, it is, but it's not the same value as if in the offseason someone traded three first round picks for, let's say, Jason Robertson. Jason Robertson is a name that has been on the market this offseason. His name's been in trade rumors the last few years. He's a restricted free agent this year. A team trading three first round picks for Jason Robertson is not the same thing as Florida trading three first round picks for Brady Tkachuk purely because of those two picks being in this draft where we know where they're picking. You understand? So you can't say he got traded for three. I mean, you can say he got traded for three first, but it's not the same. It's the ninth overall pick and the 26th overall pick. Don't say it's better to say he was traded for the ninth overall pick, the 26th overall pick, a first and a second, as opposed to he was traded for three firsts, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, now I do want to talk Ottawa first, and then I want to have a huge discussion about Brady Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers. Let's start with Ottawa. So Brady Tkachuk obviously had been rumored to not necessarily not want to be in Ottawa. I think you can say you want to be in Ottawa and you can want to be in Ottawa and you also want to leave. I think two things can be true at the same time where I'd rather be somewhere else, but I don't mind playing in Ottawa. I again, and I don't know Brady Tkachuk. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not one of his family members or his friends. But it did seem that like he really did enjoy playing for Ottawa, but he preferred to be somewhere else. You can like where you are, but want to be like would love to be somewhere else. And Brady Tkachuk has 2 years left on his deal. And Ottawa even came out and said, we didn't think he had any intention of re-signing with us in 2 years. We didn't expect him to request a trade. He never did request a trade, at least as of right now. We don't know that he did. But it seemed like he wanted to be here for the next 2 years. But after those 2 years, we'll see. And they got ahead of it and they said, all right, we're trading him. Um, for Ottawa, you lost a cornerstone piece of the present and the future of Ottawa, if that makes sense. When I think of the new era Ottawa Senators, which have only made the playoffs twice, each of the last 2 years, though, but back-to-back first-round exits. I think of Brady Tkachuk. I think of Tim Stützle. I think of Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot, all first-round picks of the Ottawa Senators. Within the last like 10 years, Chabot was 2015, but you know, Brady Tkachuk was 2018. Tim Stützle was 2020. Jake Sanderson, I believe, was 21. 21 was he was 21? I think he was 21. So, it's a situation where you lost a cornerstone of your team. And not only did you lose a cornerstone of your team, you lost a cornerstone of a team that has barely made the playoffs the last 2 seasons and has gotten killed in the first round each of the last. They got swept this year by Carolina. So this is a team that it ideally would be like, okay, we need to make a jump from not a first round exit to a deep playoff contention. And they just lost one of their keystones to that. Now, the reason why I don't think it's that big of an issue if they play their cards right is because of how much value they got back in their deal. I don't think Ottawa is going to be using this ninth overall pick. I don't think in their mind they're thinking we're going to, restock the cupboards on prospects. They have three first round picks in this year's draft. Three first round picks. They have their own, they have Florida's, and they have Tampa's. I'm actually very interested. I got to see this draft, see draft details here, but they have ninth, 25th, and 32nd. Is that true? That is correct. Ninth, 25th, and 32nd. I do not think that they are going to use these picks. They have the 32nd because of the of getting Dadonov situation. I do apologize. I was confused by why 32nd was there. It's because they made an illegal trade and the NHL forced them to move down in the draft to 32nd. It happened with the Devils many years ago as well when it was revealed that the Ilya Kovalchuk trade or not trade signing was illegal. What are you going to do? They have three first round picks, 9, 25, and 32. I don't really think they're even going to use any of them. I think they're going to pivot and I think they're going to look at other players. I think they're going to look at maybe Dylan Larkin or Jason Robertson, and be like, wow, there's two stars who have requested trades. Again, I don't know if Dylan Larkin would want to go to Ottawa, but maybe Ottawa turns their head around and says, let's go after Jason Robertson in Dallas, you know? And they say, let's trade away our first round pick, maybe in next year's draft, the ninth overall pick, and maybe the 25th overall pick or the 32nd. Maybe they use the two picks that they got for Brady Tkachuk and they flip those two picks to Dallas for Jason Robertson as opposed to maybe even another first in next year's draft. I don't think this means that Ottawa's in a rebuild. I think that this just gives draft capital to Ottawa to trade. So I am going to be honest with you. I could see these picks that they just got for Kachuk being reflipped for another star player like Jason Robertson. And then they signed Jason Robertson to a 7 times 10 or 8 times 10, So I think that's really interesting for Ottawa's standpoint, because I don't think they're going to be sticking and picking with those picks. If they do, I think it's kind of a waste, to get a ninth overall pick for Brady Tkachuk as your best pick so far in that draft and not use it to make your team better for this year. Now, let's talk about the big piece here. Brady Tkachuk is going to Florida. Let's start with Brady Tkachuk. What does Brady Tkachuk bring to Florida? Brady Tkachuk brings the same thing that Matthew Tkachuk brought to Florida when he was traded to Florida. He's going to bring grit. He's going to bring confidence, swagger. Those are the words. He's going to bring this edge that they already have with Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett. I think it's going to be really, really hard to out physically play Florida, even though they were a team who was very, very good at being gritty. I think the right word is gritty. They're a very gritty team, and they're just going to out grit them again. Um, so I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be, a great fit for Brady Tkachuk to be in Florida. If we look at his stats this year, he only played 60 games, played 59 points though, so point per game, 71 penalty minutes, 162 hits, a lot of hits. That's something you're going to notice about Brady Tkachuk. Everyone notices already. Last year was a little bit of a down year, statistically speaking, from a point standpoint. 72 games played, 29 goals, 55 points, so a little bit lower. 228 hits though. And then 3 years ago, 81 games played, 37 goals, 74 points, 294 hits. And then for fun, 4 years ago, 82 games played, 35 goals, 83 points, 242 hits. So I think you're guaranteed out of Brady Tkachuk over the course of an 82 game schedule is 30 goals, 200 plus hits you know, 30 goals, 200 plus hits. I'm interested to see what the point totals are because the puck has to be passed around a lot here in Florida. Their forward core is just absolutely stacked. It was stacked. It's even more stacked now. Um, but Kachuk has been a guy who's been around point per game 3 of the last 4 seasons. I don't really see why he would regress significantly to a point where he is like Timo Meyer, New Jersey, who is like now just like a 40, 50 point guy. I don't see why he would be that. And if he was that, it would purely be because of there's too many mouths to feed, and he just is someone who gets the short end of the stick, even though he's not. Um, I think he's going to thrive in Florida, and I think that this move instantly puts Florida back into Stanley Cup favorite odds. I was going to say contenders. I think they'll probably be the favorite coming out of the East. Maybe Carolina because they won the Stanley Cup, but Florida will definitely be two, either one or two to start next year. Um, Brady Tkachuk is a great addition for them. When we look at their team, this is their forward core. Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, Brady Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Carter Verhaeghe, Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell. That is their 7 best forwards. Those are their 7 best forwards. All 7 of those guys are legit top 6 guys with Barkov and Kachuk and Reinhardt. All these guys are stars. You could say maybe Bennett, Verhaeghe, and Marchand aren't stars, but Bennett, Verhaeghe, and Marchand are like legit first line guys on any other team. I mean, maybe not Bennett. Maybe Bennett's more of a second liner, but like Verhage would be a first liner on most teams. Marchand would be a first liner on a lot of teams, and Lundell too. Minimum second line on most teams. Like that is your seventh best forward in terms of salary cap. Like one of those guys is going to be playing third line minutes. It's insane. They still have Evan Rodriguez, Eetu Listerainen, Jesper Bokvist. I love Jesper Bokvist. Bokvist. Sorry, I don't mean Bokvist. Jesper Bokvist. I love Jesper Bokvist. You can say Bokvist, Bokvist, whatever you want to call him. Jonah Gadjevich. Cole Reinhardt is still there. They have a few UFAs this year. Hinostroza, Nosek, AJ Greer, Cunnin, Noah Gregor, Nolan Foote. Cole Schwint is also an RFA. Who they got in the Matthew Tkachuk trade? Cole Schwint back the other way. And then they have a couple. Their top six defensemen are pretty much signed. Seth Jones, Aaron Ekblad, Gustav Forsling, Nico Mikkola, Dmitry Kulikov, and Ovis Belinsky. Um, Donovan Sabrango is also a restricted free agent. Now, the interesting thing about this team is they don't have a goalie under contract. 37-year-old Sergei Bobrovsky is an unrestricted free agent. Also, backup goalie Daniil Tarasov is also an unrestricted free agent. Now, they have the cap space to re-sign um, Sergei Bobrovsky if they choose. Now, the rumor coming out right now is that Sergei Bobrovsky wants a contract around maybe a little bit north of $6 million for a lot of years. Well into his 40s, he wants to be signed. And I think that kind of just gives him support so that he won't be bought out or he can retire whenever he wants and just the contract's just over. If Florida wants to re-sign him, which he did lead them to three straight Stanley Cup finals and win two of them back to back, they can do so. But I know that Bobrovsky had a struggle of a year. They still have $7 million, $7 million in cap space. I still think that they can go out and they can get Hellebuck. And you're going to say that's kind of crazy. Hellebuck is worth 8.5 mil. They only have 7 mil and they still have to re-sign. They still have to sign a starter and a backup and also figure out who's going to be their scratches. I think that there's a scenario in which they could trade away Evan Rodriguez because, like I said, if you look at their top forwards, Barkov 1, Tkachuk 2, Reinhardt 3, Brady Tkachuk 4, Bennett 5, Verhage 6, Marchand 7, Lundell 8. Wow, that's their top 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lusterine 9. Rodriguez is on the fourth line at 3.08 mil. Do you really want to be paying Evan Rodriguez 3 mil to be on your fourth line when you have like Jesper Bokvist, Jonah Gadjevich, and like Cole Reinhardt? That fourth line's not going to be playing a lot of minutes. Do you want Evan Rodriguez on your fourth line? So in my mind, what I think they could do is trade Evan Rodriguez, get rid of his $3 million so that you have over 10 mil, just a little bit over 10 mil, trade for Bobrovsky, and you'll still have about $1.5 million to sign a backup goalie and figure out some cap wizardry to have a scratch. Or maybe you just don't have a scratch. Some teams do it. Toronto Maple Leafs did it where they were so far up against the cap that no one was sitting up in the press box, you know? And if someone does get hurt, you could throw them on injured reserve like Vegas does and get some a little bit of cap relief, you know? So I still think that there's a possibility in terms of a cap situation for Hellebuck to be on this Florida team, for them to go out and get him. Um, the only problem is value. They don't have a first round pick this year anymore. They don't have a first round pick next year. They don't have a first round pick in 2028, and they don't have a first round pick in 2029. They don't have a first round pick in any draft coming up. Um, so that's going to be really fun for them if they completely fall off the face of the earth. So I don't really know how they would be able to acquire Hellebuck. They have 2 seconds this year. They have a second next year and a second in the following year. You're not getting Hellebuck for like 4 seconds. I mean, that would be stupid for, that would be stupid for Winnipeg to trade away Hellebuck for a bunch of seconds. If you look at the minors as well, there's not really any prospects here either that you would be able to get rid of. I still think that, you know, there's a possibility for Hellebuck to be in Florida and be their starting goalie. And if that's the case, this Florida team should win the Stanley Cup Finals next year. If they don't, it's a disappointment of a year. Um, I think that they can figure out the cap situation and make it happen. I just don't know about value because again, Winnipeg's going to be looking for a first, maybe multiple firsts. So that's the thing. That's the thing here about Florida. So Florida missed the playoffs this year, and Bill Zito, general manager Bill Zito, has just decided that he is not happy with that, and he's going to go out and make some big moves. And I like that too. Swing for the fences. He swung for the fences when he traded for Matthew Tkachuk 4 years ago, and a lot of people, including myself, were like, "That's too much value for Matthew Tkachuk to give up Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar." You know, and there's going to be some people who say that's too much value to trade 3 first-round picks for Brady Tkachuk, even though it's really not that much because you can't look at it, like I said, as 3 first-round picks. You have to look at it as ninth overall pick, 26th overall pick, a first and a second. You know, Swing for the fences. Go out there and make moves. They made it to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals because they weren't afraid to make moves. They won 2 straight Stanley Cup finals because they weren't afraid to make moves. And this is not a move that shows fear that, like, oh, we missed the playoffs. Oh, we're just gonna run it back and see. No, they went out and they did something about it. And they acquired a great player, you know, who's still only 26. I mean, he is an unrestricted free agent in 2 years, but that's not a situation that they have to fear about for this year. If they want to think about contract extension, they can think about that next year. They don't have to think about it this year. All they got to think about is trying to win a Stanley Cup. And with the team that they got right now, they got a pretty damn good shot at it. So that's all I got to say about that. It's a crazy day in hockey. It's been a crazy offseason, and we're not even at the draft yet. The draft is still not for another like 4 days, 5 days, or whatever. Like it's gonna be a fun offseason. What'll happen to Larkin? What will happen to Jason Robertson? Hellebuck? What will my Devils do? Will Sonny Meta do something? Hopefully, because I don't want to do nothing. Because doing nothing is bad. And Florida knows that doing nothing is bad because they just made the biggest move of the offseason so far. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Like, comment, subscribe, favorite. Favorite's still a thing. Share with a friend. Maybe they'll share with another friend. But anyway, thanks so much for watching.